so they just release them into the wild. Unfortunately, releasing new animals into the wild can have drastic consequences for the ecosystem. Invasive species can destroy native plant life, prey upon native species to the point of extinction, and forever change the balance of the ecosystem. After all, it's not their true place in the world. Moonbeam here, like all reptiles, is cold-blooded, or an ectotherm. Their blood isn't actually cold, it's the temperature of their environment. You and I are endotherms, or warm-blooded. No matter the temperature outside, our body stays at about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. But Moonbeam here, if he were to be outside and it were 100 degrees, he'd be about 100 degrees. If it were 40 degrees, he'd be about 40 degrees. And if it were 78 degrees, he'd be about 78 degrees. You get the idea, right? The amount of energy a reptile can use directly relates to their body temperature, which is why we find reptiles more prevalent in southern areas rather than northern areas like Florida versus Canada. All right, please join me in saying goodbye to Moonbeam. From nuts to fruit to meat to grain, at Busch Gardens, we have an entire team dedicated to the animals' diets. Each animal's diet is analyzed and approved by our veterinary team to ensure that every animal is receiving the appropriate nutrition. And our nutrition center team, they're responsible for preparing over 3,000 pounds of food every day to feed our animals here at the park. It takes hours to properly wash, cut, slice, dice, and separate all of the food needed to feed our residents, including some of our largest. I said, including some of our largest. Okay? Why don't we just skip ahead to some of our smallest? This is Edgar, an eastern screech owl. And before I tell you his tale, would anyone like to hear a bird joke?
Yeah.
I'm glad, because management requires I tell one anyway. Edgar is a pretty smart dude. Any guesses what his favorite subject was in school? Science, math? It was math. He is particularly good at algebra. I'm glad you thought it was funny. My last audience did it, and things got real awkward. Edgar here is a rescue. Over the past 5 decades, Busch Gardens and our sister parks have rescued more than 40,000 animals. Let's take a moment to give a round of applause to our veterinary rescue teams, because that number is astounding. Several years ago, Edgar was unfortunately hit by a car. And while our amazing veterinary team worked very hard and did successfully bring him back to health, he can no longer fly. So he has a home with us here at Busch Gardens. While he can't fly, Edgar can show us another one of his other amazing adaptations. He can show you how his camouflage works. No matter where you are in the theater, you can all probably see Edgar pretty clearly right now, right? But now, if we move him in front of this brown wood background, see how he almost disappears? Keep in mind, screech owls hunt mostly between dusk and dawn in the woods, between low light, their small size, and their camouflage. Screech owls are more often heard before they're seen. In fact, a small rodent may not realize that they've been found until it's too late. And if you're not impressed by that, frankly, my dear, I don't give a hoot. All right, I was pretty impressed with that one. Thanks, Edgar. So besides an owl's camouflage, what are adaptations? Adaptations are characteristics that help an animal thrive in their environment and usually give them some role within their habitat. Camouflage is an adaptation, as we just saw. Quills are adaptations. Big claws, loud calls, silent wings. The way an animal socializes, even when an animal eats, are all adaptations. because they help the animal survive and, in some circumstances, help their environment thrive. Like with our next animal ambassador. Join me in welcoming Mel, our 2-year-old echidna. Based on his appearance, you might assume that echidnas are cousins to hedgehogs or even porcupines. But they're not that closely related at all. They just happen to share a very similar adaptation. In fact, they are most closely related to the platypus. And while these two animals might look very different, there's a few things they have in common, including the fact they're both found in Australia, and although they're considered mammals, they also both lay eggs. That's right, I'm not echidna-ing you. We are only halfway through this show. Can we do the laugh track? Great, thanks. Mel here was born, or hatched, I suppose, right here at Busch Gardens in Tampa. And we're proud to have one of the most successful breeding programs in the world for echidnas. That said, there's still very little known about their reproduction. But what we do know is that a female echidna will lay one single egg at a time in her own pouch. After 10 days, the baby hatches. Before I go any further, you guys know what a baby echidna is called? It is Puggle. I think that is the cutest name I've ever heard for a baby animal. I'm not going to ask if you agree. I know you do. After the Puggle hatches, they'll spend another 50 days in their mom's pouch. In the meantime, mom digs a den to keep her and her little one safe. Speaking of digging, let's take a look at the nails on Mel. Echidnas are adapted for digging, and some echidnas will spend so much of their time doing just that it's estimated that just one echidna can move more than 7 tons of dirt in a single year, naturally tilling the dirt and soil in their habitat. So just by being the incredibly unique creatures they are, they have a huge impact on their world. All right, let's all say goodbye to Mel. What am I supposed to say next? Conservation is a huge part of what we as a field do. Many animal species have been saved from the brink of extinction thanks to zoos. From the California condor, the black-footed ferret, the Guam kingfisher, and more. ACA-accredited facilities like Busch Gardens participate in species survival plans. Here at the park, we're part of several. We're a part of the African penguin, right? Yeah. Orangutan and tigers, and even more. We also participate in SAFE programs, which stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. We're involved with the Asian elephant, cheetah, and the indigo snake SAFE program. Over the last few decades, our conservation fund has supported many initiatives across the world, helping wild animals and the places they're found. Though not all of them need to be found too far away. Let's meet an animal that lives right on our doorsteps in Florida. Meet Slash, our pine snake. I'm glad you're all super excited. My last audience got hysterical. Slash here is non-venomous, and he's certainly not poisonous. Do we all know what the difference between poison and venom is? I'm going to tell you anyway. If you eat something and have a reaction, that something is poisonous. Poison has to be ingested, but venom needs to be injected, whether through stinger, barbs, or even teeth. Pine snakes like Slash are completely non-venomous, and in fact, there's only a few species in the world of snakes that are considered poisonous. Have you ever seen a snake stick out its tongue before? Good. He's not making fun of you. He's just using something called a Jacobson's organ, which, funnily enough, is an organ. Surprise, surprise. So what he's doing every time he sticks out his tongue is particles in the air or on the ground will latch onto his tongue. When he pulls it back in his mouth, he'll put it up in a little cavity where that Jacobson's organ is. Doing that, snakes can interpret what type of prey, if any, have been nearby. And because their tongue is forked, they can also tell what direction that prey was likely headed in. Pine snakes like Slash are considered threatened in the state of Florida because their natural habitats have been taken over by building and agriculture. So one of the best things that you can do for a pine snake, if you do see it in the wild, is just leave them be. They take care of lots of different pests in the state: moles, lizards, different insects, even frogs. All right, let's say goodbye to Slash. Positive reinforcement is pretty simple. Anytime an animal does something that we like or that we want to see again in the future, we give them something they like in return. This can be their favorite food, a fun toy, even a well-placed scratch, just depending on the animal. This type of training allows us to develop deep bonds and trust with the animals around the park and teach them some pretty complex behaviors. Some you can see in the show, and others like blood collection, radiographs, and ultrasounds that can be crucially important for their health. Positive reinforcement works with every species. The ability to use tools, solve problems, and other things like that is something that scientists around the world are still studying in animals and how it relates to their intelligence. With that, I cannot wait to introduce you to our next animal. He's pretty humble. He doesn't like to toot his own horn. All right, that's going to be really funny in just a second. Please join me in welcoming Baraka. Baraka is our 25-year-old Southern Ground Hornbill. Get it? Hornbill? See why my joke was so funny? You can laugh now. Absolutely perfect. Birds around the world are constantly challenging how we view animal intelligence. Some birds can solve puzzles, others recognize themselves in mirrors, and some can even use tools. For example, how does a southern ground hornbill, like Baraka, catch insects and rodents when they burrow underground? Well, he has the unique challenge of needing to break into the ground itself to find some of his favorite prey. To do that, he'll use his incredibly strong beak like a hammer, pounding through rock and soil until he finds his prize below. Today, Baraka is prepared to show off some of his problem-solving skills by doing something that we can all do to help animals no matter where we live in the world. And that is recycling. So I'm going to set this recycling bin right here. I think is a good place this time. I'm going to drop a non-reusable plastic bottle here. I'm going to drop one more here. And to set him up for success, I'm going to pick up this little bit of food that he dropped. That way when he comes out, he'll be fully focused. All right, Baraka, let's see what you've got. Might just take him a moment. We do use choice-based behavior here, so if Baraka chooses he doesn't want to come recycle, that is entirely up to him. Oh, I think I see the problem. He dropped more food. All right, it looks like he's on his way. Way to go, Baraka! How about a round of applause? That was impressive. So recycling is just one of the great ways that we can all pitch in to help animals around the world, no matter where we live. But can anyone name another? What's something else we can all do at home? Reduce, reuse, recycle. We just talked about that. But those are good ones. We can also just use less stuff. We can sustainably purchase seafood, make sure trash goes in its proper place. Lots of things like that. And we saw a lot of incredible animals here in the show today, but which of them was the most important? And who was the most impressive? Who thinks it was Edgar, that cute little eastern screech owl? No votes for Edgar. Wow. What about, let's see, big impact animal? Oh, you all loved Moonbeam. Who thought it was Moonbeam? All right, lots of votes for Moonbeam. Who thought it was all of them in their own unique ways? All right, we got there. You knew what I was going to ask for. No matter who we're talking about, all animals are super unique and they all have a special place in the world. And so do you. We all have different strengths, talents, and skills, but we're all part of this world together. We can all help our world no matter what, whether you're inspired to become the next great conservationist, a zookeeper, a veterinarian, or just change one small habit at home. In fact, in some ways, you've already made a difference. Just by being here today, you're helping support education, rescue, research, and conservation. So thank you for allowing us to do what we do each and every day, celebrating care for this world that we all share. On behalf of all of my co-workers, both animal and human, thank you for joining us today, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day at Busch Gardens.